Tracy, I'm sure you would agree, but many of us in the skating world are so lucky to do what we love because of the type of silent and critical work of our first Hall of Fame inductee this evening.
So true, Ted. Did you ever wonder how competitions and test days actually get organized? Most skaters and coaches, for that matter, would not think about the process and really don't need to. It's part of teamwork where everyone just does their job and the system seems to work. Our first inductee is Betty Martin.
In researching the background of Betty, I spoke with one of her daughters, well-known, long-time skating judge here in BC, Rowena Gadjadar. And Betty was born in Devon, England, and immigrated to Canada in 1951. Married Owen Martin in 1952, as we see them here on the beach, Spanish Banks, I think. Notice there's no structures or homes behind them at that point. So they soon after that had three daughters, Rowena, Judith, and Marianne.
Betty nursed in the operating room of the Royal Columbian Hospital for 20 years. Owen, Betty's husband, bred, raised, and raced standard-bred horses, as we see here with Wisp of Smoke. Now, Betty was not a skater, not a judge, not a coach. Betty was a mom of three children who started skating at the Vancouver Skating Club at the old Vancouver Forum Arena. And Betty's husband, Owen, took the children to skating lessons. They then moved to the Burnaby Winter Club, then to West Vancouver and the Hollyburn Country Club.
And as is the case with many of our wonderful volunteers, they start out bringing their children to the skating club and speaking with other parents, eventually becoming engaged in the activities and try and help out the club in different ways.
Betty did not start volunteering for our sport until her three daughters were a bit older, and it was at the Hollyburn Skating Club where she started to help out the committee. When we asked Rowena if Betty ever spoke to them about skating, Rowena said nope, she never really did know anything about the sport. And besides, Betty would say, I pay someone to teach you, so I trust they know what they are doing.
Nice. I like that. Now, Betty somehow started helping the Judges Bureau here in BC, and this really was an extraordinary group of volunteers who handled all the training and promotions and scheduling of judging activities around the province.
If you really think about it, the numbers of tests in BC during that time and in some remote community province-wide produced a huge workload. There were no virtual assessments or Zoom calls or electronic plane tickets. It was all written on paper, pages and pages of documents, planning test days and competition, and many judges and their schedules. And remember, as usual, everyone was a volunteer with a family and busy lives.
Betty would be working on the rotary phones, as we see here. Now, some of those young skaters out there don't know what a rotary phone is, but it was a brrrt, brrrt, it took a while, it really did, especially if it misdialed. Phoning everyone on the judges list. For all this endless work, she was fondly known as the Queen of the Night, of which she was awarded a uniform, as you see here. Janice Hunter, of course, one of our top judges, Olympic judges, tells a cute story. She said that Betty loved to call Janice to go out around the province and judge, as quite often Malcolm, Janice's husband, would first answer the phone. Now, firstly, because we all know Malcolm is such a kind gentleman, as is Janice, and very much down to earth. But when Betty called and asked if Janice was there, Malcolm would say, "What do you need, Betty?" And she would tell him, and he would say, Malcolm would reply, "She'll be there, thank you for calling." Janice had no part in that, she just showed up.
So as the sport grew, so did the infrastructure and operations. And as is the case many times, it takes an extraordinary person to do the sometimes thankless work that is required to succeed.
Now, it should not go unnoticed that one of the themes of this evening is the spectacular support of family for those who participate in our sport, as we look at the beautiful picture here of Betty and Owen. I worked for the BC section for many years and knew of Betty's amazing work and carefully never questioned it, as it was such an integral part and silent part of our success. And now please join us as it brings us great pleasure to welcome into the Skate Canada BC Hall of Fame, Betty Martin. Rowena, accepting on behalf of Betty, Rowena. Judith and Marianne, the daughters of Betty Martin. Scott. Scott? Presenting the awards this evening, Scott Moyer.
Not only am I a judge, but I was the person who took Tracy through her preliminary and junior bronze dances.
Did
My
she
first
pass? Did she
partner.
pass? She did.
Yes, she grabbed me by
Of
the
course.
back of the dress and pulled me through. I was so nervous. And I remember she got the back of my dress and pulled me around the ice. Thank you so much. It's why I love this evening, the old friends and the old wonderful memories.